Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. That is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, somebody's got a heartbeat here. The three of us, I guess, have a heartbeat. Not a lot of heart the second half of that football game from our Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, we got a lot to talk about. I know this is a tough time for everybody. It is for us as well. But let's talk about this football game, guys, and talk about uh, a little bit about what's coming up down the road for this organization. Before we do, though, let me just first say Happy New Year, boys. This was a rough football year, so I'm glad it's over. I'm ready for next year already. I'm sure you guys are too. But how is your weekend, guys?
Eric, go ahead.
I mean, it's busy as always. It's all the buildup for today, and then we saw some things not go our way in the other games, and then most of all, we lost the game. So hard to not let your all your emotions rest on one game, but it hurts.
Yep. My
Yeah.
how's your weekend, man?
Uh, good. Just spending more time with the family, and yeah, it sucks. Really wanted them to win this game. Um, After the Steelers' victory, sort of numbed the pain a little bit. I mean, I never want the Bengals to lose, but with that Steeler win today, it was going to make it a little harder for them to make the playoffs next week. But we got a lot to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals in this offseason, and a lot of opinions and a lot of takes, and I definitely have a lot of them. We're not going to be able to get to them in this show, but we'll talk about today's game and maybe sprinkle in some of those takes.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you everybody, all of our listeners for joining in. Again, I know it's a tough time right now, especially being New Year's Eve and a tough loss. But thank you guys so much for the great year. Thank you guys for supporting us, and Happy New Year to all of you guys as well. Yeah, guys, let's talk about this football game. A football game of two halves. I think that's what really stings the most about this game is the Bengals had this game. I mean, you know, you can't in football, especially as a coach, you can't. It's hard to say, we had this game won, but in this instance, I truly believe we had this game won, and we're going to talk about the series of events that happened after going up 17-7. This team just kind of packed it in and completely collapsed on both sides of the ball. Again, I'm with you, C. Griff. I'm with you. I'm not going to blame anything on the defense, but this defense needs to be revamped. I mean, it was a crap show this year. Just terrible play. Um, and again, I think we saw that again today, guys. And I want to get your thoughts on this, Mon, is this defense. I said this last week. This bend but don't break thing. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work when you don't have a bunch of dudes back there that we don't have. And again, I know Bucker had 5 field goals, but they had almost 400 yards of offense again. And it's not just going up and down the field, Mon. It's these explosive plays that are just have become the Bengals' Achilles heel, right?
It has all year. I'm going to sound like Captain Obvious here. We've said it 50 times on this show. Other people in other podcasts have said it. Twitter's littered with its spaces. The loss of Bell and Bates really, really hurts this team. 6 of our 10 defensive backs are either rookies or second year players, first year players, second year players, and it shows. There's communication issues. Cam Taylor Britt's going to be a fine football player. He got beat on that long pass to I think that was that Rice. I don't know who that. Yeah, and then Dax Hill has an up and down season. Jordan Battles played really well. DJ Turner was really excelling the last 4 weeks. He's dropped off a little bit. I'm happy with all these young guys. I think they're going to have great NFL careers, but guys, I'll throw in Eli Apple. You had Eli Apple, Von Bell, Jesse Bates. That's about 18 years of NFL experience. That's huge. That's really huge. And I think that has a lot to do with the communication breakdown, these explosive plays in the defensive backfield. One other thing, our defensive tackles. The first couple carries of the game today, I just noticed they were blown off the line of scrimmage 3 or 4 yards. And Pacheco was getting 4 yards before he was touched. He ran for 130 today. We have to get better in the trenches. We have to, both sides, but talking about the defense right now, we have to get better in the trenches. It's just not sustainable. And the bend don't break, that works when I think you just said it a few minutes ago, Jake, when you have a very experienced group of players in the defensive backfield that can communicate. We don't have that luxury right now. We have young talent that's going to be really, really good players eventually. They need more seasoning. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. I'll say this right now. I said it when Joe Burrow got injured. This offseason is going to be the biggest in franchise history. It's going to be the biggest.
I agree. I want to real quick. I want to get to a couple of very good comments on here real quick, guys. C. Griff says Cheeto is no longer the same player. I agree. I think Cheeto is a guy that we thought maybe would the Bengals would bring him back, but I just don't see that happening now. I don't see Cheeto coming back. Ben, I'm not real sure. I have to go back and watch the tape on that Cam Taylor-Britt play. It wouldn't surprise me if it was zone because our safeties have just played so poorly this year. If it was some kind of cover two, obviously there's no safety over the third of the field.
It was single high. That they showed the replay. Dax Hill was on the other side of the field, basically. But
so it's three. So it basically cover three or man free. One of those two things, Ben. If it was one high, it can only be two things really. So if it's cover three, then that's on Cam Taylor-Britt. He's got to get that third of the field. If it's man free, that's a tough spot for Cam Taylor-Britt to be in. But again, I'm going to tell you guys where I think this game was lost was 4th and 1. And I think you go back and you have to look at this Bengals team never being able to really grasp momentum in any of these football games. And I feel like a broken record when I say it over and over and over. The Bengals had the Chiefs beat on the 5-yard line. It's 4th and 1. And again, I know, Mom, you and I were screaming about throwing the football on 4th and 1 last week, but that was a little bit different, right? That was 4th and inches. That was, that made no sense. This play, Jake Browning comes up to the line of scrimmage. There's 10 players in the box, and the defensive box is what it sounds like. It's where the front 7 is. They had 10 guys in the box, Mon. Jake Browning doesn't check out of it. Zach Taylor doesn't call a timeout. And honestly, guys, that play may have single-handedly cost us the playoffs. And
are we sure he didn't check out of it, Jake? Not to interrupt you, because I swear he went kill. So I'm kind of, I got to rewatch that to see if he checked out of it.
Yeah, I have to look. I'm not sure what he was killing. If he was killing to that play, then that's on Jake Browning. I mean, I'd
have to rewatch it, but I'm pretty sure he did.
That's piss poor on Jake Browning. If that's what happened, then that's piss poor on Jake Browning. I really don't know, Eric, but I can't imagine that he would. I just can't imagine that. But I could be wrong. But that play alone, guys, and you don't ever say like one play doesn't lose you the football game. I think you very easily could say that play cost us this football game. It did. I don't know what else to say. I hate to say that, and you'll never hear me say that as a coach, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that I think really hurt us is that you got to have this killer instinct, and you got to recognize when a team is emotionally getting frustrated. And the Chiefs were fighting with our players. They were trying to fight with Jamar Chase. They were fighting with themselves after we gave up that touchdown. They were fighting on the sidelines. And that's the moment where you got to put the pedal to the metal, and you got to get out there, and you got to instruct your guys to go, start jarring with them. Like, keep their heads out of the game, and then we transition to that play and we let them back into it. And you just can't let that good of a team emotionally back into a game. When they're fighting with themselves, that's when you gotta take them out. And we didn't. And we get down to all the play calling and all the choices, but that's one of the things that I think Zach has to get better at. He has to recognize when you got a team on the ropes and hit him with the uppercut and just, get him out of there. But we haven't done that.
Let me give you a take. Let me tell you, Jake, Eric, we have watched every Bengal game for years. We haven't missed one. Eric, you drive 1,600 miles round trip to go see Bengal games. How many times in the last 3 years have you seen a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1 where they can't convert? 4th and 1, jumbo package. Cody Ford reports as eligible. 10 men in the box. You're right, Jake, but we had 10 people on the line. All right, or 9 people on the line, including it's mano a mano, right there. It's man on man right there. You have to push and get a yard. And let's piggyback on the offensive line. That was a 2-yard loss on that. I think he lost 2 yards on that rush play. The last 3 drives that we had, Kansas City did blitz some. Spagnuolo did blitz some, but the last 2 drives, it was 4 people rushing against 5 blockers. I get it. They're pinning their ears back. They're coming in. They know we have to pass. I totally understand. Put up a little bit more resistance. It was comical. Cappa and Volson, these guys are just standing there while people are running right by them. Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was watching Titusville High School football 5 years ago. All right. It's just unacceptable. We have to get better in the trenches, man. We just have to. We got good pieces, but they're not good enough.
I think we saw this season, bits and pieces of this team checking out, and we're not used to seeing that. I do want to go back to what Cornell commented. You're 100% right, Cornell. Zach Taylor struggles. He struggles with situational football, doesn't he? That's 2 weeks in a row we've seen a 4th and short play inside the 10-yard line, and Zach Taylor doesn't have a play to call. Again, you see these creative offensive coordinators around the league motioning guys, moving guys around, running a lot of misdirection, and we are literally just line up in jumbo package and try to run downhill. And we don't have the guys to do that, right? We just don't have them. Then we see them line up last week again, same situation, 4th and inches. And, tonight was a good yard, over a yard, 4th and over a yard. Last week was literally 6 inches. And we're trying to throw the football. I mean, the situational play calling is atrocious. I'll say this. I love Zach Taylor as a head coach. I think I text in the group chat, in our group chat, Maan about lost his mind, about maybe some change at both coordinator positions. Maan's like, you're crazy. But again, I'm not seeing what we should be seeing. I'm not seeing any type of change. I'm seeing the same thing on defense. I'm saying the same thing on offense. And you know what they say is insane, is doing the same thing over and over. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the same thing week after week, over and over. And even when we were winning the last 2 years and making those runs, we saw bits and pieces of this. And now once Joe Burrow goes down, it's like we see it all, right? Am I wrong about this?
No, you're not wrong. Let me hark back to, remember when Trags was on our show? We had a great show with him, and we spoke to him about 20 minutes before we started recording. I think he mentioned this. He said, have you ever seen an NFL team with the inability to get short yardage plays when needed? He talked about the Super Bowl, unable to get 1 yard. That has happened a lot, guys, the last 3 years. It's got to get fixed. Joe Burrow, to me, is a top 2, top 3 quarterback in football. I understand the Cincinnati Bengals are going to throw the ball 65% of the time. I totally get it. But when you run that 35% of the time, Be good at it. We're not. We were towards the end, last in the NFL in rushing last year. We're going to finish around the same this year. The year we went to the Super Bowl, we were only 19th. Hell, I would take that now.
Yeah.
We have to get better at running the ball, man. We have
Yeah,
to.
we do.
Listen,
You're
a little bit of envy. Look at the Cleveland Browns. I despise them. They're playing like a third string running back, and they can run the ball at will.
I know, it's crazy.
You know, and the way their offensive line performs running the ball, we just have to get better pieces. We have some really good pieces there, but not enough. I'm talking on the trenches on both sides. It's gonna be a big offseason, guys. Big offseason.
Well, you know, and I think too, when we look at this run game, Joe Mixon 21 carries for 65 yards, 3.1 a carry. I thought he ran the ball hard. I thought he looked good. Jake Browning 7 carries for 32 yards. Obviously, those scrambles. So as a team, 32 carries, 104 yards with a Jake Browning scramble rushing touchdown. So it's not that the Bengals really didn't try to run the football today. I never felt like they didn't try to run the football. I do think that we panicked. I think we panicked when we didn't get that 4th and 1 on offense. We had a couple other opportunities and possessions to go down and take the lead, and I think we panicked on offense again. I know Joe Burrow is a different guy, right? Lining him up in shotgun and letting him throw it around the park. I get that. That's Joe Burrow. That's his offense. It's not Jake Browning's offense. And again, we reverted right back to that. The last 4 possessions or 5 possessions even, we were in shotgun the entire time. I don't get it. Oh, real quick, thank you very much for that that super chat. We really appreciate that. But yeah, you know, and you're right. The physicality is the worst in the league, right? We are just not a physical football team. We saw 4th and 1 where Patrick Mahomes, we have a chance to light him up with Jermaine Pratt and Sam Hubbard, and somehow he gets a first down. I mean, it's just maddening to me that this team picks and chooses when it can be physical. And obviously, too, I mean, there's no pass rush, right, guys? I mean, if Trey Hendrickson is not rushing the passer or we're not blitzing, there's no pass rush from this defense.
One of the messages here from Brookie, he's talking about, I guess he's referencing Mixon just runs into the lineman and can't get a yard. Well, when that lineman's 1 yard past the line of scrimmage, we need to block him. All right. I mean, it's pretty hard to run over somebody that's already run by your guard. Listen, there's a lot of people out here that want to criticize Mixon. I get it. He's not as explosive as he once was before, but that offensive line has to get better. Chase Brown is explosive. He's done really well. And but some of his rush stats the last few weeks, he hasn't had a lot of them. He's been under 3 yards per carry. He had 4 yards per carry today, which is a good thing, but he doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but he hasn't exactly been lining it up when he does. Concerning the question about physicality, I agree 100%. Our offense and defensive line, it's a shocker to me, actually, because they're both highly paid units, and they have lacked physicality, and we've talked about that in the past.
Yeah, so I agree. Absolutely. Wait, real quick, Eric. Thanks for that super chat there, 513. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Eric.
So just a question for you guys on the run game, because we see other teams that are able to put trot turnstile guys out there, and they're still able to get holes, and they're still able to get their running back 2 yards down the field before they have to make cuts. What is it scheme wise? What's going on that, like, these offensive linemen they weren't horrible this year until the second half of this game, but it seems like anytime our running backs get the ball, they're having to cut in the backfield. What do we need to do to get them those 2 or 3 yards before they have to make a cut? Is it completely changing the scheme or what?
No, Eric, I agree, buddy. I think the run game coordinator, I think everything's going to be in play. We just have not been a really good, efficient running team. And like I said a few minutes ago in my little ramble, I don't expect us to run the ball 55% of the time This offense isn't set up that way. But when we do, we have to be really good at it, and I don't think we are. About that super chat, that's a great question that he asked about. Do we need to talk about Duke Tobin and the scouting department? Listen, that's something that we will talk about a lot in the offseason. I think Duke Tobin and I think the scouting department have done a good job. This draft is pretty solid. I think the players have come in and played well. I think the problem is some of the previous drafts, like Zach Carter, some of these other guys, they really expected them to take a big jump in year 2. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. I'm not saying they're going to give up on him. He's got year 3 coming. Hopefully he improves. But they expected a lot from some of these younger guys. They haven't gotten them. And I want to say this, another take of mine, and I'm sorry, if I upset some Bengal fans out there. We got a lot of high-priced players that, to me, regressed a little bit. I don't think they played as well as previous years. I'm sorry, Cappa, I'm glad he's our right guard. He's got to be better. He wasn't the Cappa of last year. All right. And I mean, he really struggled today. He struggled in some other games. He's had his moments. He's looked really good. But Kappa's, to me, has regressed a little bit. Bolson, has he taken that next step? I don't know. I know Pro Football Focus said he had a good 3-game span where he did really well, one of the highest rated guards in football. Hopefully that light bulb's coming on. We just need our stars that are making good contracts. We need these stars that we have to start playing a little bit better. Hendrickson stepped up, but some guys on defense really regressed a little bit. And I don't know if that has to do with the young guys. Maybe they're compensating, trying to make up for it. I don't know.
So to follow on to that question, it's, Duke Tobin having to be better. Well, like I said, Duke has hit on these last 2 drafts. I mean, we've gotten more starters, and I don't think we've cut any draft picks in the last 2 years. Is this now a point of Duke and the scouting team has to do better in free agency? Do we need to go try and get a Chris Jones? Is that where we need to shift our focus? Because we have DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, very, very talented, high ceilings. But like you said, it really feels like our issue is experience. So now do we have to go spend some cash and bring some experience in for that defensive side of the ball?
Let me say this real quick. I want to go back real quick to Eric. I'll get to that in just a second. I want to go back to what you asked before because, again, I think I talked about this a lot when we talked about Frank Pollock. And again, Frank Pollock being the run coordinator, it's just absolutely has been atrocious. But Zach wants to be this inside-outside zone team, and you have to have very athletic offensive linemen to run inside and outside zone. And you run that a lot from the gun. And that's why we see so many handoffs from the gun out of this offense. Again, I think a lot of it is scheme. I think a lot of it is not letting the quarterback go under center and running downhill football. Instead, trying to run zone the entire time, going man on man, and we just don't have the guys to do that. About the defense, I think, guys, I think we did see a regression from our linebackers this year, but I also think a lot of that has to do with our defensive line and how poorly they have played this year. I mean, besides Trey Hendrickson, I think we can all agree that this defensive line has underperformed immensely, especially after DJ Reader goes down. When DJ Reader goes down, you really see how deficient this defensive line of ours is. And you guys, the guys that are talking about our linebackers, yes, they have not played up to standard what we're used to from those 2 guys. But a lot of times, those guards are coming free and getting to the second level to our linebackers before they can even take a run step. And that has a lot to do with the defensive line. So yes, Eric, to your question, yes, I think we need to go out, and I think we need to, it's hard because we've spent so much money on this defensive line, but we are just not seeing it from those guys. I think you do have to. The Bengals are going to be over $80 million in cap space. I would like to see that $80 million spent on the front of this defense, and maybe even a back end guy at safety, a guy that we can count on to be able to run the defense from the back end. Maan, what do you think?
Yeah, There's a lot to take there. I just want to harp on something 513 did ask. He said something about drafting and Duke Tobin. Yeah, the Bengals have had a really hard time with the trenches. Jake, you know this. Eric, you know this. Four of our five starters or three of our five starters on the offensive line are free agents. And three of our starters on the defensive line are free agents and or trade acquisitions. There is an issue about drafting and developing linemen, and we have to be better at it. We have to be better at it. I mean, I'll name them: Jackson Carman. Bolton's still up in the air. What's that?
Keep name them. I mean, Maan, you could sit here and name every single one of them.
I know, and
it's a great point you're making.
Jack Carter, all these guys, we're just not. It's just not Joseph Osai. I mean, it's not happening.
You're 100% right.
And if you don't win the trenches, the gentleman just posted that on here too. You're not going to win any football games, man.
No.
It's really that simple. One other thing, the Kansas City Chiefs were doubling Chase, doubling Higgins. Nobody else is getting open. Nobody else is getting open. And there's something about that defense of theirs. It just reminded me of last year's championship game that, we needed somebody else to make a big play. But I guess how can you make that big play when your quarterback's getting pummeled in the second half? 6 quarterback sacks. 6.
And they all came the last two possessions. Jake Browning, 19 of 33, 197 with one touchdown, sacked 6 times. Receiving wise, you talked about our guys. Jamar Chase, 3 catches for 41 yards. Tanner Hudson, 3 catches for 38. Tyler Boyd, only 2 catches today, guys, for 29 yards. T. Higgins only had 1 catch. Again, he set out pretty much the entire first half. I mean, these guys, these receivers were really non-existent in this offense today. Tanner Hudson, man, I'm going to tell you guys, that was another big play. That drop ball, if he catches that ball, he's still running while we're talking. And you just, I think my thing is watching this team, especially the last couple weeks, is we just don't have guys stepping up and making those kind of plays. When you're on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to make those kind of plays. You got to make that first down on 4th and 1. You got to stop them on 4th and 1. You got to catch the football when the ball's in your hands. And we just did not make those plays. And we didn't make them last week in Pittsburgh. Same situation. And I think that's what's so disheartening is that this team had an opportunity playing what we thought was going to be the toughest stretch of their schedule, ended up being the easiest, right? Pittsburgh, and then Kansas City, 2 games that you thought, that we would have a great opportunity, and you literally just crap the bed against both teams. I love our listeners are throwing up all these names. They're right. I mean, Maan, when what you're talking about before, list those names of those guys. I mean, Zach Carter, Joseph Asai, who has really been non-existent this year at all. I mean, we haven't even seen Joseph Asai taking more than maybe 10 or 12 snaps a game. Offensive line, Deontay Smith, Hill, Carmen. I mean, the list goes on and on. Adeniji. I mean, this team just struggles developing offensive and defensive linemen, and not only developing them, but maybe even scouting them. Right?
Let me ask you guys this. DJ Reader was injured. We were struggling with the run game before his injury. DJ Reader, elite football player. Do we have any young guys that we're trying to mold and replace him? No, we don't have really anybody on the practice squad or anybody that's second or third string that they're molding to be the next DJ Reader. We tried with Tyler Shelvin, another miss. He's not even on the team. So yeah. What about center? Is Trey Hill going to be the future as center? I mean, he's on the roster. He's been there 2 years in a row.
Oh,
I mean, who do we have?
They already said Max Sharping is the backup.
Yeah, Sharping technically beat him out, but who's going to be our backup at guard? This draft coming up, everybody on Bengal Pulse, Twitterville there, don't start talking about wide receivers and all these skill players. We have to reinforce the trenches. We have to. I'm not trying to jump too far ahead. I'm just rambling here, but we have to invest quality draft picks on the
Yeah,
offensive line and defensive
and
line.
to
We have
that,
to.
we talk about it, but we've talked. I think we've been talking about it for a year or two. We have to get a defensive tackle in the Chris Jones mold. Like we go and draft edges, and we have all these edge rushers. That's great, but the biggest effect on a quarterback is that rush up the middle. Somebody that can just blow it up. You know, the Chris Jones is the Aaron Donalds.
The Geno
We need
Atkins,
somebody like that. Geno
right? The
Atkins.
Geno Atkins, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we've seen DJ Reader do it too when he's forced to. You know, when he was put out there in those games when Lou said, "I need you guys to go all 4 downs." DJ Reader has done it, but we need another guy like that or a guy like that that's just a game changer up the middle because Mahomes can no longer step up. What does he do? He spins out. Trey Hendrickson's there. Sam Hubbard's there. We don't have that right now. You get a clear pocket, a clear step up point, and they're off. That's my biggest thing is we have to get that. And you get that. Now your corners and your safeties don't have as much stress on them because the quarterback's not holding the ball for 12 minutes. You know, he's got to throw it quicker.
Let me throw these numbers out to you guys and tell me what again I'm not trying to harp on the defense or anything, but listen to these numbers I'm about to throw to you from this game and how many explosive plays our defense gives up every week. Listen to these team stats. First downs tonight. Bengals 20, Kansas City only 15 first downs for Kansas City tonight. 5 less than us. Third down, the Bengals 8 of 16, 50%. The Chiefs 3 of 12. 3 of 12 on third down, guys. Total plays, the Bengals 71 total plays, the Kansas City Chiefs 53 plays. The Chiefs have 373 yards of total offense, the Bengals at 263. The Chiefs averaging 7 yards per play. Again, guys, I just can't harp on it enough how much explosive plays absolutely destroys the momentum of a football game. And our defense is the worst in the NFL when it comes to big chunk explosive plays. If I would have told you yesterday that the Chiefs would be 3 of 12 on third down and the Bengals would be 8 of 16, would you have thought the Bengals would lose by 8 points?
No. I'd take that in a second.
It's crazy.
I would take that in an absolute second.
And if you would have said that the Chiefs kicked 5 field goals, you would assume the Bengals won the game. They only scored 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and doesn't it seem like every single week, guys, we hear this from the announcer? That is fill in the blanks longest offensive play of the year. I swear to God, I swear to you, I have heard that 75% of the Bengals games this year. I have heard the announcer say, well, that is the longest play, fill in the blank, from this team we've seen on offense all year. It's like, again, if I would have said this to you at the beginning of the season, when bad offenses are struggling, it's like we're the medicine. We're what they need. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing, and the Bengals should be embarrassed by that. It's terrible. This Kansas City offense, guys, lost to the Raiders last week, and the Raiders didn't complete a pass for 3 quarters. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I totally agree with you. I would have taken that stat line any day. It's just when we kick 34-yard field goal. When a field goal is that short, you're supposed to score touchdowns, especially against this team. It's the Bengals defense has been the get right defense for teams that are struggling. Look at
crazy,
the Steelers.
Right? I mean, would you have ever thought that going into the season? Never.
No. It's I know the coaching staff, I know the front office is going to do a lot of reflecting and analyzing. And I know they expected some growing pains from that young defensive backfield. And I tell you, my opinion is this: if Von Bell was still on the team, he was more than just a safety. He was sort of the glue. And I personally, this is just my opinion. I think Logan Wilson and I think Jermaine Pratt, they didn't have amazing years like previous years. They played good. They had their moments. They had some key interceptions. I appreciate it. I think it was paralysis by overanalysis for those guys. I think they were taking on Von Bell's role, trying to get people rolling, in position, and I think it affected their play. I really do. That's just my opinion. They were unable. They weren't being flowing to the ball, being able to do what they normally do. And something you said a few minutes ago, that defensive line didn't exactly help them with keeping those guards off of them. Also, losing Bates and Bell, we knew Bates was going to leave, but buddy, that has really hurt the Cincinnati Bengals.
And John, Joe Brady was Burrow's offensive coordinator in college, and he is currently the offensive coordinator calling plays right now for the Buffalo Bills. And you see that team has turned things around. Guys, again, I know I harp on the defense. Listen to this offense. Listen to how our offense crapped the bed today. First 3 possessions from the Bengals. Field goal, touchdown. Then it goes 3 plays, -1 yard, punt, then into the half. We come out second half. We have that great drive. It ends on downs, 11 plays, 74 yards, and again, it ends on 4th and 1. And then after that, guys, we had 25 yards punt, 2 yards punt, -14 yards punt, and then on downs with 13 yards. That is getting out-coached. That is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to purge the game from my memory, and the show is about the game. But thanks, Jake. No, I just watched it, and I agree with you. At 17 points in the first 3 drives. I'm like, wow, this looks so good. And then again, that 4th and 1, I think that 4th and 1, I think we would have won that game. I'm serious because being up 24-13, different dynamics, more energy for the Bengals. Maybe Trey Hendrickson and company can start teeing off and coming after Mahomes.
Yep.
Didn't happen, guys. It's been a weird season.
Well, listen, we know as Bengal fans, when you make those kind of stops, right? When it's inside the red zone and you stop a team on 4th down, that is such a huge momentum swing. And now you have to automatically reset your entire defense and offense instead of, like you said, Maan, being able to just tee off and go, get after Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. What are you going to say, Eric? I'm sorry.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, not just not getting the field goal there on 4th and 1, not getting the field goal, but then we had them pinned and they get a big play that gets them out from being right down towards the end zone. And that just gets their emotions up as well. One of the biggest things that, to me, the biggest difference from the first half to the second half, I think Jake Browning in the second half was going through more progressions and trying to hold the ball longer, almost like he felt like he had to throw. In the first half, we saw him take off right away and use his legs. And it wasn't always a run, but it was an improvised pass that got us the first down. In the second half, he was holding on to it, trying to go to his 3rd and 4th progressions. And he really didn't need to do that. There were plays where I think he could have stepped up and rushed for 3 or 4 yards and kept it alive instead of taking a sack. And I just think it was kind of a mindset of we need to go score points and kind of pushing instead of just taking what you have. And some people have commented before, we kind of went away from the rushing game, almost acting like we were down a lot. We were never down a lot. We were in this game up until the last drive. You could have been running the ball in the 4th quarter. You could have been, having those play action boosts. And it was almost like we went into the second half thinking that we need to score 20 points to win this game. And we didn't. We didn't need to score. We need to score just 10 points.
Eric, I think some of that you have to give credit to Kansas City and their defensive coordinator. I think they came out and did some adjusting. The rollouts were killing them, and I think that they altered some things on defense. But I just want to say one thing about the rush attack. Everybody's talking about Chase Brown, phenomenal talent. Hey, man, give him 15, 20 carries a game. Let's see what he can do. If Joe Mixon's not your guy, let's see what he has. He's explosive. And against that defense, you need as many explosive players as possible. But I'm just frustrated, man, because the Chiefs are, we've played them so much. They're almost like a division opponent. And they got us today.
You know what, guys, listen to this. Listen to this. We had the ball 10 minutes more than they did. 10 minutes more. Again, it is just, I can't wrap my head around it. I cannot wrap my head around how we lost the football game tonight. I just can't. I mean, we can look at all those things that happen, and what about too when we kick off and their idiot guy doesn't try to return it. I mean, that's a missed opportunity.
Close.
That close, Maan. That close. Remember, we just went up 17-7 when that play happened. We kicked off to them after going up 17-7. If we recover that ball and score, that's probably the ball game.
Yeah, it seemed like the Bengal players sort of let up a little bit. Dive for that ball. The ball's live. Dive.
Everybody standing there looking around at the ball, and it's just sitting on the ground. I mean, Kansas City special teams, besides that punt, they got us on a punt return again at the end of the game. Besides that punt return, though, Kansas City special teams, I'm not talking about Bucker, but I mean, the one guy catches the punt inside the end zone, tries to run it out. I mean, the kick returner doesn't try to catch the ball in the air. I mean, Kansas City did everything they could to lose this football game, and the Bengals could not win it. And I think that is what is so hard for me to deal with. It's just tough.
And that's kind of been our whole season, Jake, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The teams have tried to lose the games and we just couldn't win them. I think that's why we're so upset. We got 8 victories out of this. We don't have a great draft pick. We almost made the playoffs. We were able to cheer for it until we were eliminated for contention, but it was right there. And in a season where the AFC is down, there is no dominant. Unfortunately, the Ravens looking dominant, and I think that's just because the rest of us in the AFC aren't very good, and that's frustrating. They shouldn't look that good.
You're right. I mean, you look at the AFC. You look at the AFC this year, and if it was the same AFC last year, the Bengals literally walked to the Super Bowl. They walked to the Super Bowl if we're dealing with the same AFC that we're dealing with right now. And that's what's, I think, so disheartening is, you're seeing these teams like Maan said, like the Cleveland Browns, who have Joe Flacco. They pulled him off the couch. But you know what? Their defense is really good. They're physical. They play tough, and they run the football. And that is why the Cleveland Browns win with their backup quarterback, and that is why we are not going to be in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's hope out there. Look at the Cleveland Browns last year, one of the worst rush defenses in football. They went out, drafted some players, and they signed some players, and they improved dramatically. They got another dominant edge rusher to help out Myles Garrett. And, of course, they are 2-3 deep in the defensive backfield. They have some of the best depth at cornerback and safety in football. We have to copy them. I sent out a tweet last week, about 7 days ago, about how the Bengals have put a roster together to beat the Chiefs and the Bills. Well, we're 0-5 in the AFC North, looking at 0-6 potentially.
Yeah.
And, it's
and Maan, that's what's cost us the playoffs.
I caught a lot of hell about that. They go, who cares about that? We've gone to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. Hey, that's a valid point. We have gone to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. Last year, we were 3-3 in the AFC North. The year before, we were 4-2. We're 0-5 this year. Those games matter. Those games count. Hey, if we won today, we're still in it, right? But guess what? Guess what hurts us? Our 0-5 record in the AFC North with all these tiebreakers. You have to be good.
Well, it's like you said. Even if we won today, we're still screwed because Pittsburgh won today. We're 0-2 versus Pittsburgh. I mean, those games, winning your division and winning those divisional games, not only do they count towards winning the division, but they count in your conference. And those conference games are huge. We talked about this after week 4 this year when we were 0-3 in our conference. We talked about it then, how important these conference games are And even if we did win tonight, we're still having to watch 5 other games next week because we can't beat a terrible Pittsburgh Steelers team. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
I just want to say one last. I'm sorry, Eric. You want to say something?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say one last thing. Bengal fans out there, Bengal Pulse fans, Wincinnati fans, we're finishing last in the AFC North. There's going to be a lot of receipts thrown at our face. It is what it is. Just be stoic. We're going to get ready. It's not always going to be this way. And the Cincinnati Bengals are still set up to succeed. We're going to do some tweaking. We're going to improve this roster. It's going to be a very critical offseason. Somebody mentioned something about 10, 15 minutes ago about the offensive line replacing them all. That's not going to happen, guys. I could see 1 or 2 pieces potentially being replaced, maybe 1 or 2 on the defensive line. The guys we have under contract, big contracts, they're still going to be on the roster. And we are going to have some new faces out there. It's going to make the team better. And, of course, the big one is number 9. Number 9's coming back. Got to keep him healthy. And for God's sake, let's develop a rushing attack. That's good.
And I want to say real quick, Vanguard just right here. We resuscitated Pittsburgh's season. We resuscitated it. We had a chance to end it last week and get ourselves in a great position. And we go on the road against a team that was absolutely struggling and give them hope. And that's all.
We did it with the Chiefs too. We just brought them back to life. They were dead in the water.
Well, Listen, guys, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Happy New Year to all of our listeners, to all of your families, to everyone out there. Be safe. Again, we love our Bengals, but there's so much more important things in life. So be safe. Have a great New Year, boys. It has been an enjoyable year with you guys. Just a bit terrible football season. But we will finish the season off just like we always do. We'll be back on here next week, getting ready for the Cleveland Browns matchup, which is going to be, it's going to be rough to watch that. But we'll be here after the Cleveland Browns game with you guys live, and then once the off season starts, guys, we'll be on here every week talking off season with you guys. We have a bunch of guests lined up. It's going to be a great off season. So again, thank you guys for the great year. All of our listeners out there for sticking with us, and Happy New Year to everybody, guys. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I appreciate all of you guys. We're going to get through this. Disappointing. It's really odd. I sort of have a little bit of a relief right now. I'm not really that upset. That's just, this team's going to get better next week, play a lot of rookies. Let's see how they look. And we'll build this roster on the Bengals Pulse to make the Bengals better next year.
Listen, hey, and next year, the Super Bowl's in the NOLA. Jamar, Joe, I mean, it's set up, right? It's set up. But I've never been to the NOLA, so what are you going to say, Eric?
Maybe Justin Jefferson, who knows, wants to join this team.
You're gonna keep trying to talk that into existence.
Yeah,
it's out there. They want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. I'll do it in Madden.
I'm sure maybe we're going to get a lot this offseason from you.
Maybe if the Los Angeles Dodgers owner bought the Bengals, we'll get all those guys.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice to just throw out $800 million for one player? All right, guys, that is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you like this podcast, please make sure you give us that 5-star review. We very much appreciate that. Follow Maan on Twitter. Sorry, it's late, and I'm just still so broken right now. This Bengals team has broken me. Follow Maan on Twitter at @TheFireMon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Wincinnati Podcast Network on Twitter at Wincinnati Pod. And as always, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the @ Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Wincinnati Podcast Network. He is Maan. He is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week. Happy New Year, guys.